How's everybody doing? Mike here at the Limo Garage. And this video is for you guys that don't feel like spending $3,000 or $4,000 on an air conditioning system, so that you can do your own AC repairs in-house. There's no need to go out and buy a Robinair machine and spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 on it. That's crazy. So I'm going to show you how we do it in-house. We service all of our own air conditioning. There's no reason why you can't do it the same way. So the main components you're going to need. This is the evacuation machine. A nice set of gauges with your hoses. A recovery tank. A digital scale. And then you're also going to need a vacuum pump, which I've got one of those sitting right over here. There's my vacuum pump right there. Alright. And then your recharge cylinder, which you can buy those at AutoZone. No big deal. That's a 30-pounder of R134A Freon. Pick that up at any AutoZone, Advanced Auto Parts, O'Reilly's, Napa, whatever your flavor of parts store you prefer. Alright, so anyways, let me break this down to you guys so you understand what I'm talking about. When you hook up that big fancy machine, what's it going to do? It's going to pull all the Freon out of it. That's what this thing's doing. And it's going to put it in here. Well, you're probably saying to yourself, Mike, why are we going to do that? We'll just buy those little cans at AutoZone and recharge. Well, if you're like me and you want to diagnose stuff instead of just throwing stuff at it, you really need to do it this way, okay? Because I've got this little scale down here, and while this thing's running, it's measuring how much Freon it's taken out of this vehicle, alright? So if you've got a vehicle that's not cooling like it should, first thing you got to start with is the basics. You got to pull the Freon out of that thing and measure it. Make sure it's got the right amount in it. Now I know that this vehicle is supposed to hold, I got it written down right over here, 6.75 pounds. Alright? There is a way to find out how much Freon a limo is supposed to hold. I'll go over that in another video for you guys. But anyways, I know that's how much it's supposed to hold. I drove this vehicle today. Summer's right around the corner. The AC was good, but it wasn't great. So what I want to do now is evacuate this and find out how much Freon I've got. And if it's low, great, we'll just recharge it. So anyways, what we're doing right now, we're recovering. Alright, so we're hooked up on our low side, we're hooked up on our high side. I've got both gauges are open. We've got both valves open here. This is our recovery machine, and it's going in here to into our storage container, where we're keeping track of how many pounds we're pulling out. This is going to take a little while, alright? Now once this is all done, we're going to take this machine out of the equation, and we're going to grab that vacuum pump that I had. You're going to do that because you want to get all the air and all the moisture out of your AC system. Air and moisture are your enemy when it comes to AC. And you're going to want to leave that thing on a good vacuum for about a good 30 to 45 minutes. And then once you're done, you can grab your canister over here. Grab your canister of R134A. You're going to grab this bad boy and you're going to stick that on that scale over there and zero it out. Hook it up to your gauges. And watch that scale go down. And once it reaches the amount of Freon it's supposed to have in it, there you go. You're fully charged. So I'll go over that once I get to that step. But like I said, there's no need to go buy a $3,000, $4,000 AC machine. Every single one of these components that you see here is what's inside of that machine. And I can tell you right now that we bought all this stuff on Amazon for about $700. That's right. So for less than $1,000, you can service your own air conditioner in-house. And if one of these components takes a crap, they're pretty cheap to replace. I don't know, I think this recovery machine was probably $200. Isn't that a lot better than having a $3,000 or $4,000 Robinair machine go down, or you got to call a service guy to come out and fix it and everything else? To me, it just doesn't make any sense. This has been real efficient. I've been doing it this way for a couple of years now, and it works out just fine. Alright, so I'm going to update you guys in a few minutes how you can go ahead and recharge this system once it's done recovering. So now we have finished evacuating our system. I already shut the scale off so you can't see it, but anyways, I took 6.5 pounds out of this. It's supposed to have 6.75, so it's down just a little bit, not a big deal. So I've already disconnected my lines here. disconnected this, so we're going to go ahead and get this thing out of the way. So that's your recovery machine, and now what we need to do is put a vacuum on the system. So there's your vacuum pump. So I'm going to place that right up here. So obviously you don't want to be hooked into this right here. So you want to be hooked in straight to your gauges. So grab your line here. And we're going to always make sure you take this little vent off here. So there's your vacuum pump. Now, like I said, that big fancy machine, it's got the same thing inside of it. I think this pump was like 95 bucks. So we're just going to hook it up here. Now, depending on what kind of pump you buy, some of them are oil free, some of them do require oil. We bought the one that requires oil. In my opinion, I just think that it'll last longer. I don't know, something about a pump that doesn't require oil just doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. So yeah, you always want to check your oil level. You see right there, we're good, so that's that. Always take a little cap off the vent tube. And what's nice about this thing is it runs on regular power. You can just plug this right into an extension cord. Alright, so that's that. We're all plugged in. Now we make sure that you see our pressures are all at 0, right where we want them. Perfect. Now we can go ahead and open up both sides. Of course, these valves got closed after I was done evacuating. We're hooked up here. You can see this line goes right to there. We're good to go. Flip this thing on. There's your vacuum pump. Now you're going to notice these gauges eventually are going to start to go down into the negative. I like to see this thing usually bottomed out right around negative 30. But it's going to take about a good half an hour to 40 minutes for it to get there, so you just sit back, relax, and let it do its thing. Been on a vacuum for a good hour now. Take a look, you can see now that we're down negative 30, and down as far as the needle will go on the high side. So it's safe to say that we can go ahead and shut the vacuum off and start doing a charge. So first thing you want to do, we're going to close our gauges. And we're going to shut down our pump. My storage tank has a decent amount of Freon in it, and the Freon's already mixed with oil. So I'm going to recharge it using the storage tank. If you're doing this for the first time, you're going to want to use that 30-pounder. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is we're just going to take this lead here that's connected to our pump. We're going to take that off the gauges, and we're going to hook up the storage tank. Go ahead and get this thing charged up, and I'm going to show you how this works. So you don't need a machine to do this. So we've got our gauges closed. Take that off the service port right there. Go ahead and put this one on. Now I'm not going to put this on completely tight first. I'm going to leave it a little bit loose because as I open up the valve on the service port, we want to make sure that we get the air out of this hose. So we're going to get a little spurt out of it. Alright. So like I said, you're going to get this hooked up here and you're going to have your tank turned on and hey, a little spurt. There you go. That way I know that I don't have any air in there. Last thing you want to do is put some air in that system and you just went through all that trouble to vacuum. So I've got my tank turned on. I've also got my scale on. We're just going to go ahead and zero this out so we get an accurate reading of how much Freon we put in. There we go. Alright, so we're zeroed out there. Our tank is turned on. We're all hooked up. We're still showing a vacuum. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up both ports, high side and low side. You're going to see both of these gauges jump, and we'll also be able to see it down on the scale, see how much Freon we put in. So I know for a fact we got to put 6.75 pounds of Freon in this thing. And while this thing's filling up, I'll explain to you guys how I came to that conclusion. Alright, so let's go ahead and open up the low. Remember, we're doing this without the engine running. Okay, engine is not running. No need for that yet. Alright, so let's open up the low side first. And we'll open up the high side. This puppy's going to fill up pretty quick. So watch over here, you're going to see this. It's going to move pretty fast. Alright, so while that's doing that, I'm going to explain to you guys how I came to the conclusion that this thing is supposed to hold 6.75 pounds of Freon. Now, this is a single compressor system. A lot of limos have two, this one has one. And the coach builder didn't bother giving me any information to tell me how much Freon it's supposed to hold. So what I did a factory charge on it first. And your factory charge is always going to be listed, and mine's gone. Well, usually there'll be a tag here that has your factory charge, what it's supposed to be, or you can just look it up online. So once you get your factory charge done, then you're going to go ahead and start the vehicle up, and you're going to check your pressures, make sure your pressures are normal. Your high side should never be any higher than 200 to 250. Your low side should be between 30 to 40. Sometimes it'll hit 50 on a really hot, humid, nasty day. All right, so once you get it up and running like that, you're going to want to go inside the back of the limo and go to the vent that's closest to your evaporator. And you're going to want to stick a thermometer in there and see what your temperature is. Do this with it running, use the low side, and start adding 1/4 pound of Freon at a time until you hit what's called optimum temperature. You see that thing starting to drop down 60 degrees, 55, 50 degrees. All right, we're getting close here. I better stop babbling. See, we're getting up there? All right, so I'm going to keep an eye on this, and I'm going to shut these gauges off before I overcharge this thing. Because an overcharge system is just as bad as an undercharge system. So we're at 6.5 pounds already. We want 6.75. So I'm going to open up the low side valve one more time. And slowly let a little bit more Freon in. Give it a second to settle. We're pretty close. Almost. You know what? That's pretty damn good. I'm happy with that right there. Alright, so there's our charge. Alright, so back to what I was saying anyways. So what you're going to be looking for is your optimum temperature in the back. Once it reaches the coldest point that it's going to get to, that's when you're fully charged. So you put in that factory charge. Get back there with a thermometer, start seeing what your temperature is. Every time you add 1/4 pound. Go through the low side with it running. And once you get to 60 degrees, 65 degrees, 50 degrees, when you start noticing your temperature starts going back up, that's when you know you've reached your optimum temperature. You need to take a little bit of Freon back out and then record exactly how much you put in. Remember, like I said, do it at 1/4 pound at a time. And that's how I came up with this number. 6.75 pounds. This is a 2005 Excursion 180 built by Aladdin with a single compressor in it. But this also has 2 condensers underneath the vehicle instead of 1. I added that extra condenser because we're in Florida and it just makes sense. Alright, so that's it. We're fully charged. Let's get my pump out of the way and we're going to start this thing up and see where we're at. And we should have some nice cold air. So I'm actually going to shut this tank off now. There's no need for that to be on. And I'm going to show you guys how to do what's called clearing the lines. Because you got to remember, this line right here and all these lines, they've got Freon in it. And that's Freon that's been measured that came out of that tank. So that Freon needs to be in the vehicle for you to have an accurate charge. So let's go ahead and start this thing up. And when you do this, you're going to want to have your front AC on and your rear AC on so that it circulates the entire system. That's that, that's that. All right. Make sure these valves are closed. I'm going to go in the back. Make sure our rear AC is on. So this thing has two AC settings in the back. You got one here. That's good. That's all set there. And then you've got one here for the VIP section, and that's all set. Perfect. All right. Now we're going to see how our pressure looks. Just under 200. And right around 50. You don't want to see that any higher than 50. I'd like to see it closer to 45, but we don't live in a perfect world. So now I'm going to show you guys how to clear the lines, all right? So in order to do this, make sure that you've got this valve shut off. This valve doesn't do anything anyways. You can always do this through the low side. This is your suction side. Don't ever open the high side. That's your pressure, okay, or your discharge side. This is your suction side. So by opening this, and actually I'm going to want to close this. So take this port, take your high side port right off. There's that. Always make sure you put these back on. Don't be lazy. Alright, so now we're going to clear our lines by going through the low side. And watch, you'll be able to see inside this sight glass. You should be able to see a little bit of Freon go in. Now open that up. Alright, and that's it. The lines are cleared. So there you go, guys. That's how you recharge your AC system without buying a $3,000 AC machine. Everything's working like it should. Let's see how we're doing in here. Yep, that's starting to blow cold already. Alright, guys, if you have any questions on what I did, go ahead and throw a message. Hit me up on Facebook, send me an email, or give me a call. This is Mike at the Limo Garage. Thanks for watching.